Roll call for the City Council meeting of Wednesday, October 19th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon.
We're going to rise for silent meditation and remembrance. And I would normally not do this, but I want to ask you to keep in mind my friend from the newspaper who lost a daughter after an addiction battle. I read the obituaries every day, and I've seen a lot of young people losing that battle. So I know that what my friends Jeff and Doris are going through, way too many families have had to endure this. So please keep them in mind, but keep every family who's been dealing with loss. We've had somebody at City Hall who lost somebody, and one of the things that I think is very brave about the bereaved who are left here is that they have acknowledged what their loved ones have gone through. We didn't used to do that. We're acknowledging it, but we have to address it. And I noticed that there's a drug take-back day coming up at City Hall, I think on October 27th. If you have stuff that you want to get rid of that could fall into the wrong hands, please take advantage of that drop-off time. I'm not sure of the exact hours, but I know it's posted out there in the lobby. So thank you very much.
Moment of silence. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you today, first of all, grateful and thankful that you have allowed us to meet in these chambers today. We ask that by the power of your Spirit, you aid us and you help us to make good and prudent decisions on the behalf of the city. We ask that you bestow a special blessing upon those who are bereaved and those who are experiencing loss, those who experience homelessness as it grows colder in our city. And we just ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes from the Wednesday, October 5th, 2022 City Council meeting and bills for payment on October 21st and October 28th. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen.
Now we go to the mayor for the presentation of the proposed 2023 budget.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you today to present the city's 5-year plan from 2023 through 2027. Before I highlight major factors in the budget, I want to remind you of 3 general principles that control everything that I and my team do. First is just our 6-word mission statement: build opportunity, restore hope, transform Erie. Then is our 2-sentence vision: Erie is a community of choice. We celebrate our rich cultural diversity, our welcoming, vibrant neighborhoods, our world-class downtown and bayfront, our excellent education for everyone, and our abundance of good family-sustaining jobs. Third, there are 4 principles that control everything I do as mayor. I'm committed to being 4 things: open, honest, transparent, and accessible. Please hold me accountable. That's the way I want to be. If you ever see me not being that way, please bring it to my attention. I want to be open, honest, transparent, and accessible. This is the earliest that any mayor has ever presented a budget to City Council. It had normally been done on your second meeting in November, which would be a month from now. But last year we moved it to the first Monday in November, or the first meeting in November. And today, for the first time ever, we're doing it in the second meeting in October. We want to give you more time to work with and understand the budget, and we'll be here, my team and I will be here as much as you need us to explain things or answer questions. Our approach to doing the budget was actually pretty different this year. There were three people from finance, Lisa Gomersall, who's here with me, and Kimberly Aguirre and Victoria Montgomery, who are out in the crowd, along with Renee Lamus and myself. The five of us met with every department head at least once to discuss every line on their budget. That had never been done before. And many of the department leaders had a second meeting after the first one because something would come up in the first meeting no one really knew, and so we had to give them some time to work on it. Once we completed all the meetings and included all their requests for change in the expenses, we didn't say, no, we're not going to do that to anything they presented to us. We found the city expenses, though, were up $6 million with what was requested. That was a 6.27% increase in expenses, and that was unacceptable. So we started to cut expenses. Reducing expenses is not easy. 90.59% of the city's budget is employee salary and benefits. And a lot of that is set by negotiations with unions. It's not something we have any control over totally. We can, obviously we can negotiate the best we can, but so most of that can't be cut. So we worked hard on the other 9.41% that's left to see how much cost we could take out. The budget expense was submitted to you this evening. It's up only 2.55% from last year. Unfortunately, our projected revenue is going up less than 1%. So in this budget, our expenses were up 2.55%, but our revenue is up less than 1%. So we're using $3,257,095 from the Water Authority's lease payment, which appears on line 3111 of your books there, to balance the budget. And that leaves another little over $3 million of the Water Authority funds that we set aside for this that we plan to use in the 2024 budget. My goal is always to avoid a tax increase with what we present to you. And there's no tax increase in the current budget proposed. We are proposing two much needed fee increases in this year's budget. They're the sewer fee and the refuse fee. Let me just tell you a little bit about each of those. We can talk a lot more about them, but the sewer fee had not been raised since 2019, which was 4 years ago. Our proposal is to raise the quarterly sewer fee by $2.84 from $65.25 a quarter to $68.09 a quarter. So that's a 4.35% increase. The refuse fee has not been raised for 3 years, since 2020. Our proposal is to raise the quarterly sewer fee, the quarterly refuse fee by $9.96 from $76 to $85.96. That is a 12.6% increase. We had trouble attracting refuse workers. We've had a huge turnover, and so we had to significantly increase wages. That's the reason that's gone up so much. So the total amount of the annual increases we're proposing is $51.20 to homeowners. So people that own homes will, if you approve this, will pay $51.20 more over the course of the year for their sewer and their refuse. This should be manageable. In the future, we'd like to avoid such large increases by raising the fees every year, just as the Water Authority does. You're probably all familiar with that. If we did these increases, I don't think would ever be more than 4%. They'd probably usually be closer to 2% or 3% increase per year. That's what the Water Authority has been doing, as I mentioned, for many, many years now, and I hope we can get your support to start doing that next year. Next, I'd like to talk about pages 20 and 21 in the budget book. Page 20, just to let you know about some changes there. Page 20 presents the Office of the Mayor expenses. Page 21 presents a new department that we are creating called the Office of Communications. This new department will allow us to communicate with the people of Erie much more effectively and make city services available to everyone in Erie. 4 employees will be moved from the office of the mayor to the Office of Communications. And I know we haven't done a good job of communicating this to my staff, and I know probably all 4 of them are pretty upset about that. But I've been trying to assure them I'm still going to be available to them. If they need something, they can talk to me as often as necessary. But the 4 employees that would be moving, if this is approved, would be Frank Stramilla, Moss Sala, Michael Outlaw, and Nika Nastari Carpenter. We will also hire a communications director to run the department, and that person will be responsible for coordinating community outreach, which we don't do at all right now, giving all Erie citizens access to our messaging, and clearly communicating all city resources, services, and initiatives to the community. Those are 3 things we feel we aren't doing enough of at this point. And we can talk more about that. Next, I'd like to look at the budget for the HR department, which is on pages 30 and 31, if you want to take a look at that. Our Human Resources Department has been understaffed for many years. We're proposing adding 2 more people to that department. One has actually already been added. Chris Moore, who's an existing employee in finance, we just moved him over about a month ago into HR. We also want to add a diversity coordinator to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion in Erie. The diversity coordinator will also implement Strategic Consulting Partners' DEI report, and you will have a study session on that on November 17th, as you know. One drawback to presenting the budget early like this is that there are 5 major expenses that we don't accurately know exactly what the 2023 costs will be. We expect them to go up, but we don't know. The 5 expenses are our electric bill, our gas bill, our health insurance risk estimates, the assessment estimates, and the insurance and workers' compensation. But as you're working on this, we will learn those numbers, and we'll tell them to you as soon as we know. And I'm hoping it's not much different than what we budgeted. So as I said, we've estimated those costs in the budget, and we'll let you know what they actually come in at for sure. So over the last 50 years, the city of Erie has lost 40,000 people. In January, I announced a major goal for the city. I want to increase Erie's population by at least 10,000 people over the next 7 years. This is how I'd like to increase city revenue. Rather than raising taxes, I want to increase the number of people paying the taxes. COVID has been a slowdown on our growth, and there is great improvement going on. As I think all of you know, all you have to do is look around on State Street, what's going on, and there's things going on off State Street as well. There's a lot to go through in this book that you've got today. My team and I will work with you and give you a good understanding of what we're proposing. We look forward to the evening meetings where you'll be getting detail, asking questions, and hopefully getting good answers. So we look forward to working with you on this 2023 through 2027 budget and meeting with you as often as necessary to present each department budget, answer your questions, and hear any suggestions that you have for improvement. I know you're hearing and seeing this all for the first time today, but if you have any initial questions, Lisa and I will be happy to respond to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to have one comment, and then we'll let everybody else react. One of the things I think is we do not have a property tax increase, and you're projecting or hoping we won't have one for 2024 as well, correct? One of the things that I think, and this really gets to the whole communication strategy and how we let people know what's going on. This story originally ran in July, but I think City and State, that website, republished it the other day. So New Pennsylvania budget includes a $140 million boost to state's property tax and rent rebate program. And there's a deadline, I believe, of December 31st or the program was extended to December 31st. I don't even think that you have to apply. I think you might automatically qualify for this, but you need to, I think, initially put yourself in there. And I think it's really important to let people know that even though we aren't raising property taxes, we know that property taxes are a burden. We know that the school district raised property taxes. And we know, as Councilwoman Flores often reminds us, about those who are renters, who are in need. So I don't know if this would be the job of the communications director, or maybe it's the job of all of us to let people know that there is relief if you make under a certain amount of money. Thanks to this boost in the state budget, I think it's just an additional 70% for 1 year. So anything that anybody can do to help spread the word before, assuming the communications directorship is approved, I think that we can help do that. And you know, I've often said, why aren't we telling these stories, or let's spread the word? And I know that I'm asking people who are already working many hours to take on something else. So thank you, Mayor, for acknowledging that and for laying it on the line in terms of what your requests are. And I also want to thank Lisa for taking a new approach to the budget, for getting it to us early, and then we'll make sure that members of the public know, the study sessions where we're going to be delving into this. We know that we have people on council who ask really good questions and are not afraid to challenge the mayor, including me. I go back to a couple of years ago when the mayor sent me a Christmas card and said, keep asking those hard questions. So does everybody want to have, I know you're just getting it, but do you want to start on, I think it would be good if everybody wanted to, if you want to give an initial reaction, if you're comfortable doing that, or we'll start with Chuck. I'm just trying to do it, like, not to put anybody on the spot, just boom, 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 boom. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to looking through this. It's always first thing I do is look at what the projections are for the future, and I know there's a number. I know that last year's book, 2026, has a 8.7 deficit. I know it's up to 9 in this one. There's those immediate things that I recall off my head, and I'm looking forward to spending more than 5 minutes looking at it, and the next 3 months of asking questions.
Thanks, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck. How about Mel? Do you have anything to comment on?
I've been doing this for 19 years, no comment.
Okay. Mo, this will be your first crack at this. Any comments off the top of?
I'm just looking forward to it, and thank you, Mayor, and your staff for, I think you said this is the earliest it's ever been here, so thank you for your work.
Michael?
I look forward to working with your office to deliver the best budget we can for the residents.
Jasmine?
I appreciate the work the administration has put forth in presenting this to us. It's just, like Chuck said, when you've been studying budgets, you're kind of alarmed when you get the first initial impression that we already spend the majority of our budget on salaries, and then you're asking for additional salaried positions. So I'm a little alarmed, but I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to shake out and how much those positions are going to cost us yearly.
Ed?
Yeah, I share somewhat the same ideas as Jasmine does. Are we going to take from the folks you already have here for those new positions that you have headed up, like the head of communications? Are you going to talk to the folks that you have here doing the job now that could move into that job, or are you going outside?
We don't have anybody actually doing communications right now, and what we've learned in studying it is most cities have groups of, rather large groups working on that. So I'm certainly open to anyone who'd be interested in doing that, whether they're employed currently or not, but if they have the background, absolutely.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, Michael Outlaw's out there. Our Frank does a heck of a job with what he has to work with here. I'm just saying, if we're going to do things, we should really look at getting as close to expenditures and revenue coming together. Mm-hmm. You know how I think about your fees. We won't fight about that.
That's okay.
Not yet.
Oh, whatever.
I think that
I'll
there
listen.
is some
thank you.
reorganization, though, correct? I mean,
Yes,
that-
definitely.
so you've looked at structures,
Yes.
and I don't even think right now we have an org chart, do we? I mean, I think it would be helpful to have an org chart. Fred Rush gave me one, and it was like done with, I don't know, like highlighter or something. He said, "Here, Liz," but that was a long time ago. So an org chart, I think, would be helpful too.
Okay.
Something else? Anybody else?
You know, some of those positions are new. I'm trying to, like, the media strategists and the 2 liaisons are new under your administration, right? I don't recall exactly what the previous ones were. So this new position is going to be more of director than actually doing the communication. Like, is it more of a, are they going to be the one communicating? Can they communicate for me right now as I'm trying to get my idea out?
I don't quite understand.
Are they? Is it more management, or are they going to be doing directly the communication?
I think there'll be leaders in the communication, but they'll also be managing the 4 people in that department as well.
Okay, thanks. And we'll have months of discussing this. So
Yes.
But Chuck, when you looked at the years down the road, I do think it's that as we look at this, we need to have, on the other hand, that our PFM Bible next to us, which has identified that, the structural deficit that it has been projected there for a long time, that we've tackled in some ways and we haven't gotten to everything. So I think those things go hand in hand. So I'm glad you flipped ahead to it shouldn't be a shock, even though it's up higher, but we've known that this is hanging over our heads. So tough decisions. So Mayor, Lisa, anything one of the things, just to let the public know, we will be letting everybody know when our study sessions are and what the topics are going to be, and those will be on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings at 5:30, but we still have to set the exact dates for those and the topics. So we'll make sure that, even though we don't have a communications person yet, we're going to make sure we're communicating when we will be hashing this out and when you can be listening, in person or on Zoom. Anything, Lisa, to add to us? All right, we're good to move on then?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Then repository sales, right?
We do
Lori?
have someone. If you could come up. State your name, your address, and the property that you're interested in.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Burns. My current address, or the address of the property I'm interested in?
Both.
So my current address is 137 East Arlington Road. The address of the one I'm interested in is 924 West 17. And then what was the last one?
Those questions in front of you.
In front of me?
If you are prepared to answer those for council.
Yes, I am. So the first one, is the property vacant or does it have a structure on it? It's vacant. There is a fencing around it. I did call, and it doesn't, because it's vacant, it's not like it has any, code violations or anything. So to get it back up to, I guess to get it to code, I would just have to cut the grass and do any maintenance. My plan would be to, I guess I'll speak it into existence. When my bid is approved, I will get a large dumpster to clean it out. I'll do it myself with me and my friends and my family to clear out the area, do the lawn maintenance, and get the trash out. I don't live too far from the property, not really close, but within 10 or 15 minutes. I travel a lot, so I'll keep up with the rest of the maintenance with a service or with a friend or family. I'll make sure I get those schedules set up as necessary for when I'm not in town. Oh, what are my intentions? Sorry, I skipped that one. I would like to put a single family unit on there, so I would build one.
And Ms. Burns, I think originally you were hoping to do a multifamily, but then
Correct.
you've talked to code, or somebody has
Yeah.
communicated to you what the restrictions would be, correct? Or
Correct.
what
He said
the
based off of the dimensions, it was like 30 by 100 or something. I couldn't do a multifamily. I could only do a single family. As I get into like the details of that, like the blueprints, and really get into that, I'll make sure I work with the code and zoning. It's my first time dealing with something like this, but I'm sure I can do it correctly.
Does anybody else have any questions on this proposed?
As long as you're aware that that was the biggest concern, was that it was a single family lot and it wasn't big enough to hold the multi-unit. But all right, you seem like you know that, so thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
We wish you luck.
Thank you.
Any more repository sales? Last call repository sales. We'll move on to the public comment portion of the meeting.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Deacon Barry Clark. My address is 2035 East 19th Street. And I come once again to compliment you guys on the work you're doing in the city. The city's looking great. Construction everywhere, street work. The city is looking great. But when I look outside my door, it don't look that great. Streets haven't been worked on since Mayor Savacchio. And I'd like to get some street work done on my street, 2035 East 19th Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Freda Tepford, live at 1738 West 23rd Street in Erie. So I'm here for a number of things. I hope that we all leave tonight having passed the stormwater ordinance. It's time. We had a stormwater utility when I lived in Snohomish County, Washington in the 80s. And $12 to $36 a year for residences is just not too much. And if there needs to be some kind of relief process, then that should be explored. But it's not a reason to not pass the fee. And by having this fee, we're going to capture these vast properties of the nonprofits. So I think it's time. There on the agenda is to approve some housing on the Bayfront. I think it's not a wise idea to put more large houses where they're going to block the view, where they're going to block the airflow, where they're going to change the character of the neighborhood. That's my opinion of those. There is something about stream bank restoration, and that is part of the pollution prevention plan. I would like to encourage the city, rather than to be doing stream bank restoration on Cranch Road, where there's already lots of shrubs and trees growing, to maybe work out an arrangement with the cemetery to get something other than grass right up against the stream there. That would be a more appropriate way to reduce pollution for the creek than to restore a stream that is already relatively well vegetated. And so I don't think just doing a stream bank restoration project to do a stream bank restoration project is the best way to go. And now we'll go to my greatest hits. It's time for the city to work on a traffic mitigation ordinance. The city has the authority to have a traffic mitigation ordinance. Here you are with the potential of this plastic recycling plant that's going to have a huge number of trucks going into a neighborhood with schools and residences. There's going to be pollution, congestion, and noise. There should be a traffic mitigation ordinance in this community, and not just because of the IRG project. Also, it's time for the city to do a better job of regulating how construction impacts our sidewalks. One of the few things that I would compliment the Erie Downtown Development Corporation on is their management of sidewalk closures. They do provide sidewalk bypasses. There's no reason in the world why that couldn't be done on 10th Street, why Hagen has closed. He's now open, but 6th Street, where his fancy houses were being restored, and where Cathedral Prep and the endless restoration of the cathedral on Sass and 10th has been going on with sidewalk closures. That should be remediated with sidewalk bypasses. There should be a fee based on the length of time the sidewalk is closed. They should have to justify why they're closing the sidewalk. It should be the exception, not the norm. And again, I want to remind the city, it's almost winter time, and pedestrians have a right to access sidewalks. Businesses, at least businesses, should be required to clear their sidewalks. There are vast areas of this city that the businesses make no attempt to clear the sidewalks and nothing is enforced. And then there are also places like 26 in Elmwood where the businesses have vast piles that they've used from clearing their parking lots, and they've blocked the sidewalks with them. And that's in violation of city ordinance, and I report them, but they're still there after weeks. So please do, and the city itself needs to not have their trucks obscure corners. So many corners on Brown, that's a chronic place. But there were some corners that were obscured. You couldn't even get to the pedestrian call buttons. Thank you.
Thank you.
City Council President, members of City Council, Mayor, my name is Ed Kissel, 2815 Sigsbee, and I support the stormwater program that you're going to be voting on this evening. Having worked behind the scenes on it, I know what's involved in it, and I think it is good overall if it's explained right to the public that they can get credits, and so can the large vacant lots qualify for the same. But I have another subject real quick. I was not able to attend the last public hearing on the project on the Bayfront at Front and Poplar Street, the condominium units that are proposed to go in there. The city, in their design review program and in their planning commission program, have continuity of looking at what is in those locations. And what I'm talking about, that building that they are proposing, if you can picture in your mind, is modern. And what has taken place across our Bayfront, from Front and Sassafras, you have a condominium complex that kind of fits the neighborhood. And as you go from Front and Sassafras over to Poplar Street, a lot of those residents now have remodeled their homes, but they kept the fronts the same as they were 100 and some years ago. And it looks beautiful. When you're looking at this project that you're going to be voting on tonight, I'm not against the project, I'm just against the design in that area. I think it should be more waterfronty look versus what's down there now. Again, two examples, what's on Front in Sassafras and what's over on the far west side, sitting on a bluff, looks like a cigarette box with 6 apartments, and it looks blah from both above, although a lot of people don't even know they can drive that particular part of Front Street. But down below, when you're looking up, it doesn't fit the neighborhood. So I asked council, when they, you have in your ordinance in the waterfront zone conditional use, and you can suggest, and at times you can even mandate that they follow the order that would make things fall in line. I don't fault the design review, but the members that are on the design review and the planning commission have been there some time, and they have coordinated other parts of the Bayfront to match what's down there, such as the library, museum, the hotels, kind of keep a continuity of what we proposed years ago to be a nice look both from below and from the top. So that's all I have to say about that. The repository sales that you go through, and as over the county, they go through, you know, basically $250. I don't have a problem with that, but I have a concern. There's been properties sold, one on, I believe, 24th and French, and it was the garden. There was an organization or a couple of people who were putting in the corner gardens, which were great. And for a number of years, 2 or 3 years, they grew vegetables in that area for the neighborhood and for whomever wanted to buy it. That corner now is such a mess, and I don't know if you can put in a covenant with these sales that after 3 or 5 years, if they are not maintained, somehow they revert back to the city or the county. I know the county has to approve it, you have to approve it, and I believe the school district have to approve those sales of those properties, but I don't know, and I don't think there is a check when those properties are sold per what you're hearing from the people who are saying they're going to do this, this, and that, which is good. They go back on a tax rolls, but if nothing's done on that vacant lot, there's not much money coming in for you to tax-wise. So again, I don't know if that's a regulation that can be looked at to enhance those areas that do get sold for that repository sale. So I thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Is there any other public comment from the people who are here? And Frank, we have a couple people online, correct?
Good evening, Council. Thanks for the opportunity to address you this evening. There is a little bit of a lag between the YouTube channel and this viewing on Zoom, so I apologize if it took me a couple seconds to connect. My name is Jenny Tompkins. I reside at 665 North Street in Meadville, though I'm an Erie campaign manager for clean water advocacy with Penn Future, a statewide environmental advocacy organization. I first want to echo the comments that Freda and Ed both briefly made about the stormwater fee vote that's happening this evening and the related credit policy. Sorry I couldn't be there in person myself, but I actually am fortunate enough to be calling in from Milwaukee, where I'm attending a National Wildlife Federation conference all about clean water. And our conference strategically coincided with the 50th anniversary of the U.S. Clean Water Act, which was yesterday, October 18th. And I want to frame my comments around the Clean Water Act tonight and how it relates to the stormwater fee. The Clean Water Act has been monumentally important for the protection and restoration of U.S. waterways, including Lake Erie and Presque Isle Bay. It did a great job of regulating heavily polluting point sources, which are confined areas that can be tied to specific amounts of pollution discharges. Examples include wastewater treatment and industrial facilities. We saw huge improvements in those areas in the city of Erie, specifically in the last decades. However, the Clean Water Act has limitations. It has not provided strong enforceable standards for non-point source pollution like urban stormwater runoff and agriculture. Therefore, local governments have a huge role to play in filling some of these federal gaps. I was lucky enough yesterday to join a field trip all around Milwaukee that showcased how local funding was a catalyst for recent modern stormwater improvement projects rather than just maintenance. I heard from local government officials, nonprofits, engineers, and business leaders about projects that they were proud to be involved in around stormwater. So a dedicated fund created for stormwater maintenance and, more importantly, improvement projects that would be created should you vote yes tonight on the stormwater fee ordinance would be a tremendous opportunity for Erie in meeting its clean water goals, similar to what I saw in Milwaukee yesterday. So I just want to conclude with saying that voting to implement a stormwater user fee this evening is an ideal way to celebrate the legacy of the Clean Water Act while also recognizing its limitations, After 50 years under the Clean Water Act, we know local communities can fill critical gaps that exist in that lack of federal regulation. So please vote yes and join dozens of other PA municipalities in creating a dedicated source of funding to address stormwater management. It's been referenced tonight that you have a bit of a playbook from your consulting partners in the past about how to critically evaluate funding gaps and the financial vulnerability the city is going to increasingly have. And stormwater fees were recommended as one of those strategies. So I just wanted to remind you of that. Thank you again. And I'll echo, because I always say this, that if anyone would still like to join me for a walk along the bayfront to discuss environmental and water issues, I'm happy to do so when I get back from Milwaukee. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jenny. I will make sure that council members know when you're in Erie and when we can do that walk along the bayfront, because the weather is going to get better before it gets worse. Thank you.
Casey Walker, are you on? Casey Walker, you'll have to unmute yourself. So we move on, Madam President. Casey, can you hear us? Hello, Casey, are you there? Okay, that's it.
Shall we move on? Okay, ordinances for final passage. Council file number 16313, official ordinance number 54/2022, an ordinance of the city establishing stormwater management fees within the city of Erie, sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Keys. The council file ordinance bill number 16313, and now known as official file ordinance 54/2022, be finally passed by city council. Mr. Brzezinski?
Before I vote, I once again want to reiterate the fact that I was concerned about and could not get a definite answer to, is that money that's to be collected, 1.4, 1.7 million, whatever's coming in, that will be in a fund that will be only used for the problems we're having, not hiring people or anything else, right?
Right, it will pay for a couple of employees that we need. Yeah.
Okay.
Paying over their salaries and benefits.
No salaries.
Save, take action so we don't have another 1.5 million carried to.
I will trust you at your word for that, and I vote yes.
I just wanted to add something. I keep dwelling on this communication thing, but I got an email from a woman who said, $36 a month, how can you vote for that? So I said, well, I'm not sure what your source of your information is, but the most it would be $36 a year, not $36 a month. Most people will pay $24 a year. Lowest would be $12. So we're assaulted or bombarded, is a better word, with all kinds of information. So we just need to let people know what we're committing them to. So, and thanks, Ed, for the reminder about making sure that this goes to where it's going to go. So I didn't mean to interrupt the vote, but.
Ms. Flores? Mr. Keys? Mr. Nelson? Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council passed official file ordinance 54, 2022 by yeas 7, nays 0. Ordinances for first reading. Council file number 16314, an ordinance transferring the hiring and oversight of school crossing guards from the City of Erie to the School District of the City of Erie. Sponsored by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Troop. The council file ordinance number 16314, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16314 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Sorry. Council file number 16317, and appropriating the sum of $63,459 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof. This is 2022 Justice Assistant Grant. Sponsored by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Troop. The council file ordinance number 16317, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16317 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 16318, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $249,966 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof. Cold Case Detective PCCD JAG, which is a Justice Assistant Grant. Sponsored by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Troop. Council file ordinance number 16318, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16318 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 16319, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $60,000 from unappropriated and anticipated revenue and providing for the expenditure thereof. This is for body-worn camera program. Sponsored by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Troop. The council file ordinance number 16319, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16319 by yeas 7, nays 0 on first reading. Council file number 16320, an ordinance appropriating the sum of $507,264 from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue for the expenditure thereof in the capital fund and will be used to pay for capital expenditures. Funds are from the American Rescue Plan Fund to reimburse City Hall building upgrade. Sponsored by Mr. Nelson, seconded by Mr. Keys. Council file ordinance number 16320, having been read, is hereby adopted on first reading by City Council. Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, no. Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. City Council read and adopt council file ordinance number 16320 by yeas 6, nays 1 on first reading. Council file number 16321, an ordinance amending Part 5 Traffic Code, Title 5, Stopping, Standing, and Parking, Article 521, Parking Generally, Article 523, Parking Meters, and deleting Article 523.99, Penalty.
I'd like to speak to this one for a second. Is that the right time? All right. So the intent of this one is that this is something that Councilman Keys had been pushing for pretty much as soon as I've been in office. Having Councilwoman Flores and myself as downtown residents added to the council has given an additional perspective. So this has been in discussion for almost 11 months now, and at varying speeds. What we're looking to do here is that if you get a ticket at a metered spot in the city right now, it is $15 on the first day, or if you get a non-metered spot, it's $30. If you are on a fixed income that you're getting paid at the beginning of the month and you're living monthly, paycheck to paycheck, and this comes in an inopportune time and you hit day 31, your metered spot goes from a $15 ticket quickly escalating to $100. Your non-metered ticket goes from $30 quickly escalating to $100, sometimes without even the opportunity to get a paycheck in between for some of our residents. So what we're looking to do is normalize the metered and non-metered penalties, as well as making the escalating penalty a little less aggressive. This does still keep the highest end of our penalties in place at $135. That's under the advice of the company that we work to collect those fees with. And as it stands written in the agenda today, we did not have all of the information regarding how this would work out financially. So we have now, I would like to make in a moment, I will make a motion to amend, but the purpose of that is so that we have a steadily increasing rate that happens at each month at a regular basis, and in doing so that we will have a revenue neutral move here. The revenue neutral move for the city just simply makes it the same for your residential non-metered parking fee, but it will escalate less quickly, and some of that will increase fees on other areas. Whereas Reading and Allentown have metered parking fines of about $45 is what we were told. This does bring our 15 up to 30. I would like to make a motion to amend the ordinance as written, changing the proposed rate of $25 from 0 to 30 days to $30 for both metered and non-metered. I would like to amend days 31 to 60. I would like to change the price of that from $50 to $60. And days 61 to 90, I would like to move to 90, with the rest of the ordinance remaining the same as written. I would like to make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We can discuss. I may well vote yes on this when we do the second reading, but I want you to know that when they talk about legislation being a sausage-making operation, that's kind of what happened in our caucus today. We had an ordinance that was available for the public to look at with changes, and now we have more changes. And Michael and Chuck and Lisa worked really hard on looking at the numbers, but I'm not comfortable even on voting on first reading until we hear from Public Works about how this might affect snowplow operations. I do know that there's a strong appetite on council to try and solve what is a parking issue for people who have to use on-street parking in the inner city. We have a great spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. I love Excel, but and Chuck is that's one thing we really agree on. We love Excel, right? Am I right about that? But we had, his spreadsheet. We had these 4 different pages. So this is the revenue neutral one, but it said average of payments received, but it should have been actual. Anyhow, I like to have. Call me old-fashioned. I like to have stuff in front of me so I can say, okay, boom, this is what it was, this is what it's going to be. There's also going to be changes in how often, how frequently you might get a ticket. I think with metered parking, it's really important to hear from the business community about that. Metered parking and on-street parking regulations have different functions. The metered parking, the idea is to move people along if you have businesses. So I am glad that council members have worked really hard on this, but I want to see the actual revised spreadsheet with everything in here, including the handicapped numbers, not the numbers of handicapped people, but the possible changes. I think there's changes in the penalties for violating handicap parking. So that's my explanation for what I'm doing today, but what I might do in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Call for the vote.
Before we do that, can you just reiterate your
Have fun,
changes?
Lori.
Yes.
Who's on first?
So from 0 to 30 days,
Are we in 521.99 for non-meter?
this will be applied to metered and non-metered. And the rest of the ordinance is written for today is remaining. But 0 to 30 days will be $30. 31 to 60 days will be $60. 31 to 90 days will be $90. Sticks with the days even. This is so clean. 61 to 90 will be $90.
Point of order, do we have to vote on the original ordinance and then the addendum, or one vote for both of them?
You're going to vote on the motion and the second, which were pre-written, are being amended by the same two. So if it passes, we're done. If for some reason it doesn't pass and somebody wants to vote on the original, we can revisit that.
Oh.
But as of right now, you're just voting on
One time.
the amendment.
And one last thing to state, the sense of urgency on this is that odd-even parking starts soon. We don't have this done in time to help you on odd-even parking as residents. I'm really sorry about that. I'd hoped to have it done in time, so this will leave a couple weeks at these more escalated of fines before odd-even parking starts. But by December, we're looking at our residents having these less escalated fines. So I'm at least excited about that. I didn't mean to rush some of our council members.
You left off at 61 to 90, I think.
$90.
$90. It goes, if you pay it before 30 days, it's $30. Before 60 days, it's $60. Before 90 days, it's $90. So do you have that, Lori? Are we okay?
I believe so.
Thank you.
That's for metered and non-metered.
Yes.
Voting on the amended ordinance, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keys, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen.
No.
City Council read and adopt Council File Ordinance Number 16-321 by yeas 6, nays 1 on first reading. This takes us to old business. Pursuant to the recommendation from the City Planning Commission and a public hearing held on Wednesday, October 5th, 2022 at approximately 9:30 a.m. in Council Chambers, 626 State, Erie, PA, a request for waterfront conditional use submitted by Lummus Park Opportunity Fund for construction of 2 multiple-family buildings totaling 16 units, 1 2-story 4-unit, and 1 3-story 12-unit, located at 102 Poplar Street. Parcel IDs 4039-100, 101, 102, and 103. Those lots to be combined. Be hereby approved. Mr. Brzezinski?
Can we have discussion, please?
A question, yeah, me too. I just, Mr. Kissel brought up a very good point when he came up here, citizens to be heard. Is there a possibility maybe we could table this to find out if the builder would make the facades of the building more amenable to the bayfront look? I don't know if that was discussed at all when they went through zoning. I won't table it if it's going to be a situation that would stop the building of it, but he brings out a good point. We want to have a beautiful waterfront, but we want to have a continuity there too.
I drove by on the way to the council meeting. I had gone down there before because somebody had talked about blocking the view. There is a house already there, and the other condos next to it do not look much different than what is proposed. And I think that Ed Kissel has a good point that we need to look at design guidelines going forward, but I don't see how we say to somebody now, if anybody wants to see my photos, I will show you that they look, that whole block looks almost the same. There's one to the west that has like wooden siding, and these are all 3-story buildings, and the other 2 are vinyl sided. So if you may want to look at my phone to see what's there now. I think it would be unfair to say to a developer who's already invested once in the city, and when he talked to us a couple of weeks ago, he explained that that was very successful and has decided to invest again. I think it would be unfair to say, oh, wait a minute, you've done this, now go and change it. And if this was on a block, like Ed mentioned, where, all those other the rehabbed houses are, that's not what it looks like. And anyhow, that's what I think. I think we'll send a bad message to developers who already know that we have a lot of hurdles that we put in before development, and we don't have a lot of developers coming in and saying they want to do housing. So, but anyhow, if anybody wants to see my pictures, here they are.
So I'd just like to say that I would support you, Mr. Brzezinski, in tabling it into, so you're really putting an unfair burden on the council when, it goes through planning and it goes through different steps who should catch these sorts of items, and I will say this, that publicly, that other building that he built is about the ugliest building I've ever seen. Hands down on the waterfront. And so it doesn't fit the character of the waterfront. It's gonna be, one of them's gonna be 3 stories high, which is nearly, and which will in fact block most of that part of the waterfront from the people who are up on the bluff. And so this type of stuff should have been caught before it came to us, but I would support a table to revisit the design, because we only got one chance, and what's ever going to be there is going to be there for the next 50 years. And to talk with Ed's #1 talking point, also it's all going to be rental properties, and there's no opportunity to expand home ownership in that area also. So,
can you explain what you mean about bypassing council? Is council now going to dictate what kind of housing can be built everywhere? Are you proposing a change in the design? Are you proposing a change in zoning or in the planning commission itself? Can you please clarify what it is that you expect council to be able to do at a time when we have supply chain issues and costs are increasing? You are telling somebody who wants to invest in Erie that to go back to the drawing board. Am I correct? And can we do that, Ed Betza?
That is waterfront conditional, if I understand correctly.
But there are certain, yes, but it's very specific what we can do with waterfront conditional.
So there are 2 terms that you will hear from time to time: conditional use and special exception. Well, maybe a 3rd term, permitted use. If it is a permitted use, it is the criteria is set forth in the ordinance, and if I do that, I can go down and just get a permit. There's no official action taken. A special exception is something that goes before the zoning hearing board, And that is where you have specific criteria. And if I meet those criteria as determined by the zoning hearing board, then I get approval. The zoning hearing board would also have the ability to attach any necessary conditions to ensure the safety of the general public. A conditional use, almost identical to a special exception, has specific criteria. If I meet that criteria as determined by city council, then I get the right to build it. But you have the ability to attach necessary conditions to ensure safety. What we're talking about here is design and appearance, and I don't know the specifics of the design. I haven't been involved in that project, but I would at least say tread carefully. If we have criteria and they've met the criteria, they get it. If they don't meet the criteria, they don't get it. And so if you need to attach safety conditions, let me use an example. It's going to be a gravel pit. And that's a ridiculous example, but bear with me. It's going to be a gravel pit and it's close to a school district. You might say that you cannot operate during the times that school is coming in or letting out. Or you might need to water the road to keep dust down. Those are types of things that you can add to ensure safety. But I don't like the look of it. At least that, and I'm not saying that's your only concern, that at least raises some concern for me from a legal end.
That's one of the things they were supposed to address, continuity in the how it looks in the neighborhood, whether it fits or whether it doesn't fit into the neighborhood. That was something that was supposed to be addressed. It is one of the conditions in the process. Personally, I believe that, that the amendment to the Pennsylvania Constitution, which guarantees our water rights to include our scenic views, might come into play into something that is going to block the view of the general public of the of our bayfront and restrict access. So,
are we no longer on Zoom? Did we flame out or something?
Right.
Overtime.
Just so people know, there is a house there, so it's not gonna block anything that isn't already there. And I'm no architect, but I will say again that if you look at the other three buildings that are there, if we had more specific guidelines when those were constructed, this fits in with what's on that block. And Michael, I think if you want to, there is a process going on right now for design guidelines downtown. There are things that can be done to amend that, but I don't think it's fair to do it to somebody right now. So, I mean, I had looked at the house that was there before, but then when I went by today, I was like, oh, I knew somebody was going to bring this up, and it's like, wait a minute, here's 3 different apartments or condominium units that are, I mean, they don't look like they were built in the 1900s when we had a lot of, fishing people there and small little cottages, which are in the character on West 2nd Street and farther up.
No, I never made the motion. I asked about the motion. Let's not make this guy building these apartments a hero. He's getting a 10-year LRTA. So he's got money to spend, and he's going to make money. Any way you look at it, it's good for us, too, because if the building is standing in 11 years, we're going to get some tax money out of it. But that being said, I was just curious as to what Mr. Kissel had mentioned. I'm down in that area with Meals on Wheels, so I've been around that area very many times. And I do have a concern about the look, but again, not enough to stop the whole project either. So, call for the question.
So we're just voting on the thing now, right? Not, okay. Thank you.
Voting on the resolution, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keyes, Mr. Nelson,
No.
Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Resolution passes, yeas 6, nays 1.
Move the balance.
Second.
Chuck's nuts.
Any separations?
Separations?
Separate number 2.
Under new business?
Under contracts.
Dave Hallman? Any other separations? Moving the balance of the agenda, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keyes, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Resolved by the City Council of the City of Erie that the proper city officials are hereby authorized and directed to issue an agreement to Dave Holman Fleet Service, 1925 State 16501 for 2 2022 Silverado 2500 HD trucks for fire inspectors, $40,855 each for the Bureau of Fire at a total cost of $81,710. Discussion?
Yes, so some of our constituents are alarmed that we continue to buy fully gas-powered vehicles at the amount and at the rate that we are, with everyone else working to decrease emissions and work toward more sustainable ways of transportation. It seems that we have a sustainability office. I don't know what they do, but in the 3 years here, they haven't weighed in on how we get greener, but I am for, I'm not against investing in the 2 trucks for the fire service, but I think that the time to act is now, not after we replace our entire fleet and they're in service for the next 15 years.
I'm glad you mentioned that because now is a good time for an update. We learned yesterday from Chuck Zisk, I think, that Public Works is going to be getting 5 EV heavy-duty vehicles. Am I right about that?
Yeah, they've applied for funding to do that.
Yeah, and that would also include infrastructure. And they said there was a really good chance that they were going to get. So it would include the infrastructure to make sure that those vehicles could be charged. And we heard from Jenny Tompkins tonight from Penn Future. I wanted to let you know that she has met with the new city planning director, Dave Forrest, because we are moving, and Dave Forrest asked if there's an appetite on council to move forward with the Environmental Advisory Council ordinance, and I believe that we're good to do that. So we should be acting on that soon. We will have some expertise then from those volunteers to work with the sustainability coordinator to develop our sustainability plan and do, what you've advocated in terms of, reducing our carbon footprint, becoming more sustainable. So sometimes things seem to take a long time, but, between the time when Jenny took her new job with Penn Future, which was just a couple of months ago, we have an ordinance that's going to come before us soon, so that'll be good. And I know Chuck keeps up with a lot of, you're our liaison to Public Works, and that's going to be really good news if and when we get that grant, but they sounded pretty sure about it, so.
I just know that Councilman Keyes has been mentioning that we should be looking into hybrid vehicles since we came on to council, Chuck, Nelson, and Mo. And I know that since that time we have bought in quite a few vehicles that we're going to be, used to using. So I'm also a little hesitant to be continuing to purchase fuel using vehicles when we know that that's one of our biggest expenses every time we're getting a budget report, and it continues to go up, and there's something you can't control. So I definitely would like to see comparison to both types of vehicles, if we can get both types, just because it's coming in the future.
We do have the chief here. Did you want to comment at all or add anything to the discussion? About electric vehicles versus
Are those electric
traditional.
vehicles still exploding down in Fort Myers after the flood?
I don't know.
Just asking. Just asking.
I appreciate your opinions, but I also have to state, once you start buying electrical vehicles, you have to have the infrastructure to support those vehicles. And at Mars Street, we have nothing like that yet. So before we get our feet wet, we've got to have a dry place to land. So, in the future, in our 5-year plan, of course, we'll have to look into electrical vehicles, for the staff. Fire trucks, they're at least $1.5 million a piece right now. But like I said, we don't have the infrastructure to support electrical vehicles at this time.
I do agree with you, sir. But sometimes there's hybrid vehicles, so not necessarily all the way. It's just fully gas powered, I think, is the way of the past. So thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
And, no, just in terms of sustainability, though, would you remind people that the Central Fire Station is getting solar panels? Not exactly, talk about EV, but.
First one in the Commonwealth.
Woohoo!
Any other discussion? Voting on the resolution, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keyes, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon, Ms. Allen. Resolution passes yea 7, nay 0.
Takes us to committee reports, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's start with Michael, Jasmine, Ed, Mo, Mel, Chuck. Okay? Oh, I'm sorry. All right.
No.
Okay, we'll start with, I didn't mean to. Let's start with Ed then. I always try and make it fair. Did I catch you off guard?
You ready for this one? No report.
Okay, I have a little bit of a report. We are in the process of appointing our blighted property appointment, so that'll probably be on the agenda for November. Ms. Sheila has been at a few different meetings via Zoom, and she's aware of all the obligations. I also would like to just mention that, with our moment of silence, we have acknowledged that, drugs is a real problem in our community. I was a recipient of Sister Gus's Kids Cafe back in 2001, and one of those stars had wished that, one of the students had wished, her name was Rebecca, that I wish there were no such things as drugs. So I participated with a bunch of kids back then in our wishing fish and they had all of our wishes, and a lot of the wishes that kids had back then were now adults in our community, and it's still the same thing. We wish for a Christmas tree in our house. We wish for a hug. We wish for the whole world to not be poor. I wish I didn't have to keep moving. So it's like children are very aware, and we're always talking about the fact that they're not being invested into. And I just wanted to give acknowledgement to the Benedictine sisters and the MS ministries and the work that they have been doing in our inner city for quite some time, because I was a recipient of that service. And a lot of the kids who go to Piper Gurley do access that program, and they don't come bragging much, but I was able to have a meeting there today, and they were able to go through their archives and bring up the pictures of all the kids. So that really just made my heart warm that there's still a record of that experience. So we're all adults now, and our kids are still wishing for the same things. So we have a lot of work to do.
Michael, you ready?
I just have comments. So one of the things, I think Chuck he touched on it, or Councilman Nelson, that we are giving you more time to pay your parking tickets and slowing the escalation. And so what we were unable to do is remove the cap. So what we need for you to do is take the extra time and make sure you pay your tickets, please.
Mo?
Madam President, I have no report today.
Mel?
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Glad to get it done.
Chuck?
The participatory budget for the parks is over now. I guess that ended on Monday. So I'm really excited. I got involved with some skaters up at Columbus Park. I have no background in skating or skateboarding or anything like that. But it sounded like a good idea, and it sounded like they can leverage the money at about a 4-to-1 rate. So I've been doing a lot of work on that. We ended up getting about 300 surveys filled out that were just in that park in particular, which is the record, it sounds like. And then met with Sisters St. Joseph, and they were able to pull up some old plans for what they'd originally planned for that. I mean, and then they started talking about grants they were applying for. I think, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 kind of ratio on leveraging this. So I've been pretty excited to be working on that. I met with our new planning director to discuss the vacancy registration. That's something that I had brought to our former planning director back before taking office, and she had been really running with it and helping pull that together. So with that, I'm not the chair of this committee, but I'm on the Community and Economic Development Committee. That's really the next step to it, is that we need to have a public meeting with that committee to help move it forward, so that we can send stuff to the solicitor and get it written up. And one other thing, the Information Technology Communication Committee, really excited. We had met with some fiber folks over the course of the last few months. Jasmine's the chair of that one, and she's been really hustling and working on it. But there was a plan for when we would get fiber in my neighborhood, and it was a couple years from now. And now it looks like the entire West Bayfront neighborhood is going to be lit in the next 6 months because of a much more aggressive approach to that. 10 times faster. I just got it yesterday, so I'm really excited. But 10 times faster upload speeds than what I was getting before. 10 times faster upload speeds. It's no coincidence that the fastest growing city of our size in the nation also has citywide fiber and a citywide fiber plan that they wrote in 1998. And at this point, we're quite a bit behind on that. But this is the technology and the infrastructure for today's economy and today's community. So I'm very excited to have that today. And that's as much city council business as what's happening at my address. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. I just have a short report. Today, Chuck, Jasmine, I, and the mayor were guests at the Manufacturers Association to meet with the Canadian Consul, and it was a very heady session. But one of the things that struck me is that his name is Andre. Do you remember? whatever. It was a French name. And he was actually born, I believe, in Welland, near the Welland Canal. Anyhow, he talked to us about the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada advocating for liberal democracies, not liberals, but liberal democracies, to work together on an integrated economy as opposed to what happens under autocrats. And the woman's name is Chrystia Friedland. Funny that Chuck would mention internet because my internet kept going out today, so I was not able to listen to her YouTube, her speech that she recently gave on YouTube. And I never have any qualms about speaking up. We had people from both parties there, but there are some members of the party other than I am who have danced with the insurrectionists. He also talked about, can we ever bring this country together? The mayor, an optimist, said yes, that we can still have civil conversations. And we're trying to say, yes, in Erie we can do that. He was very discouraged from talking to other places in Pennsylvania about the divide. To me, it was probably thinking, what does city council have to do with Canadian trade? But Chuck mentioned that he's already made some connections on the IRG plant to the Canadian people that you meant. The mayor fills the positions on the Port Authority. We have Jenny Tompkins in Milwaukee celebrating the 50-year anniversary of the Clean Water Act. Canada cares about, they're part of the Great Lakes Compact. There's 2 provinces there. Anyhow, so we, I think, learned something today that maybe a little bit, not out of our comfort zone, what would you say? A little bit different than what we would normally talk about at a city council meeting. But democracy matters. Democracy matters. Democracy matters. Don't let it go away. All right. Teresa, do you have any report? Mr. Betza, do you have a report?
I have nothing.
Mayor, do you have anything else?
I'll be very brief. I want to thank you for passing the stormwater management fee today. I think that will really help us keep our water system in much better shape. And I look forward to working with you all on the budget. I know it's going to be a lot of work, but I'll spend as much time as you need talking about things, and we're open to listening to your ideas as well. So
I'm glad you reminded, because we will let the public know when those sessions are going to be, but we have a study session on November 17th, if you mark your calendars, where we're going to hear about the new homeless dollars, I believe, that DCD is going to be, I have the right initials, is going to be working on. We're going to piggyback a study session on that with Michael Outlaw and the diversity, equity, and inclusion study that is in draft form, so council can be brought up to date on that. I know Michael Keyes has been attending nearly every meeting, but the rest of council will be able to learn about that, and so will the public. So that's November 17th, but plan that a lot of other Tuesdays and Thursdays we're going to be working on the budget. Anything else for the good of the order? Sorry. I clicked too soon.
City Council adjourns at 9:04 p.m. Ms. Allen, Mr. Brzezinski, Ms. Flores, Mr. Keyes, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Troop, Mr. Witherspoon.